Hi everyone, it's Antonio. In this week's video vlog, I think we can just say vlog, can't we? In this week's vlog, I want to focus on how important it is to support children to, if they're struggling with dyslexia difficulties, to create a very positive and a very liberating way of looking at dyslexia so that they no longer feel that there is something broken or damaged or wonky or a little bit fuzzy or twisted within themselves that is causing the dyslexia difficulties to happen. And it can be very easy as a child, and I was one of those children. I didn't break free from severe dyslexia until I was 38 years of age. And I started to break free by looking at dyslexia in a different way. If I think, or if a child thinks that there's something not right about them and that it exists within, and we might not have the thinking as a child that it's part of our genetic makeup or it's part of our biological makeup, for example, or it exists on a neurological level or whatever, but we sense that it's within self and that wherever it's stemming from, and some children see their dyslexia to exist in their brain and some see it to exist in their hands, some in their arms, or one child said to me once that they felt their dyslexia was in their stomach. And so there's different places that a child might think that their dyslexia exists, and that's okay. But the majority of times when we start talking to children who are experiencing dyslexia difficulties, they locate the difficulty within themselves, that somewhere inside them there's something not quite right that's causing the dyslexia to happen. And even if we dress it up as something really wonderful and positive, and that you've got dyslexia, or you've got this thing that makes you different to everybody else and it helps you to be more creative and to have more divergent thinking skills, and there's lots of entrepreneurs and lots of famous inventors and lots of historical characters that were dyslexic, so you're one of that bunch of people. It doesn't take away from the fact that if you're really struggling to learn how to read or learn how to write, that you might think there's something inside you that's not working the way it should do, because all your friends in the classroom and other people that you see around you, they're getting on with reading and writing without any difficulty, but you're not. So this week I just want to share with you a very simple way of explaining my view of what dyslexia is. Now, we're all entitled to our own views of what dyslexia is, and there are many, many different views out there. So we have to find one, I think, that's the most useful for the child so that they can start to make very quick gains in terms of developing their skills with reading, writing, with memory, with staying focused, staying on track, and etc. And the way I look at dyslexia is that we have our inner self that wants to externalize and express the essence of who we are, want to get that out into the world. And we may use sort of different mediums like music or dance or mime or physical movement, and they're our preferred way of externalizing our inner selves. So that's our main or preferred medium of expression. And there are different ways, and some of them are a new invention, sort of like written language. It's a new invention. It's only 5,000 or so years old. And the schools prefer this medium of expression. So you go to school and the teacher says, look, you can't use your preferred way of expressing yourself by painting or by being a musician or by dancing. What you have to do is forget about that. And from now on, you've got to start expressing yourself using this medium of expression. Of course, they don't explain it like that, but that's certainly what's going on. So what's happening then is if you've got a very strong orientation to use your preferred medium, and all of a sudden somebody's telling you have to use this invention called written language to express yourself with, then there can be a real awkwardness in getting the hang of this new medium because you want to go in one direction and they're forcing you to go in a different direction. And I think I can explain this very easily if we look at perhaps a tin opener. If we were to pick up a tin opener and we're right-handed and we pick up a tin opener that has been designed for left-handed people, and we pick that up and try and open a tin of beans or whatever with it, then we're going to find that very awkward to use, and it's not comfortable for us. It's not how we want to open the tin of beans. It's just that there's faults in that tin opener when we use it because we're right-handed and it's a left-handed tin opener. But we don't internalise those faults. We just say, look, this is the wrong tin opener. It's not for a right-handed person. And we search through the drawer until we find a right-handed one, and then we open the tin of beans with it. And written language is an invention. So what happens is we need to learn the skills to be able to use that invention. And that's it in a nutshell. So to learn those skills, if we, in a classroom as a child where there's sort of one method fits all approach to teaching literacy to the child, then it can be very difficult for that child to pick up the skills on how to use this medium. And we need a different approach on how to work with the child to support them. Now, what we want to do, first of all, as I said, is not to or certainly, well, we can't stop somebody, we can't stop a child from thinking the way they want to think, but we can certainly encourage a child to think of what they're going through in a different way, so they can see it as an invention that has had many changes to it over the years. It's developed in many, many different ways. For example, Samuel Johnson in 1755, he came along and said, look, we can't have multiple spellings of a single word. We need one spelling for that word. So perhaps the word old, for example, could have been spelt in many different ways before that period. All of a sudden we have one way of spelling old, which is O-L-D, instead of the other ways that it was spelled. And I think some people used to spell it A-U-L-D-E. Correct me if I'm wrong. But the way you sort of spoke a word, you could write it down, and that was perfectly acceptable. But of course, with the advances in sort of technology and printing presses coming onto the scene, we wanted to sort of have one word that you could put into the blocks, the blocks for printing, and not search through multiple different spellings. And apparently William Shakespeare spelt his name in 12 different ways. It was perfectly acceptable, perfectly fine. But this invention is developed to have constraints on it now. So what we have to do with a child is to support the child to know that this is an invention. There's no right or wrong way of spelling words. There's just the teacher's way, which is a conventional way, which we need to learn how to do. So when we're at school, we can use that way of spelling. But if we want to write notes, or if we want to write a story at home, then we can use our own unconventional way of spelling a word. And then we start to write and we start to express ourselves. And the more we do that, then perhaps we're more inclined to sort of develop the skills on how to spell in a conventional way. But certainly if you spell something in an unconventional way, then you're not sort of going through this process. And especially when we're as parents coaching a child, we don't want to be saying you've got that wrong or you've got that right. Oh yes, you've got that spelling right, you've got that one wrong. Because the more times we hear that we've got it wrong, then the more of a negative self-concept we start building up of ourselves, and we start to sort of really enforce that view of ourselves as being broken. So we want a child to be able to really keep using their preferred medium of expression. And if a child, for example, is expressing themselves more naturally through art, and apparently more than 60%, I think, of art students are dyslexic. So let's say art, for example, and the child likes to draw and paint, then what we can do is to teach a child how to read and write through the use of this preferred medium of expression. And I'll cover that in detail within the membership section of this website. And we can come up, and what we want to really do is to support a child to become the inventor of the methods that they need to be able to flourish with reading and writing and memory skills. So if the child takes on the approach that they're a little scientist, as George A. Kelly in 1955, very famous psychologist, he said that we're all like little scientists and we create personal theories and we put them into practice. And if they work, we validate them. And if they don't work, we invalidate them. So for a little child to take on this sort of scientific approach, they're an inventor now, they're a scientist, they can create experiments. For example, I'll give you a couple. For example, one child I work with, and I've been a dyslexia coach for about nearly 25 years now. And one child I worked with many years ago, he was struggling to do his spellings. And so in the end, we sort of, I encouraged him and sort of facilitated his invention. I supported him to invent a way of teaching himself how to do spellings, and that was simply he used to close his eyes and climb a tree and he'd get a stick, and a long stick, and he'd write the words that he wanted to learn in snow. So he'd see lots of snow in front of him, he'd climb up a tree, he'd write the words. Oh, actually he wrote the words in the snow, then climbed up the tree so he could look down on the words. And that was one way that helped him to learn how to spell words in a conventional way. And another child used a big paintbrush and painted the words on an imaginary wall, an imaginary paintbrush on an imaginary wall in their minds. And so, yes, we have to support the child to develop their own methods, the unique methods that work for them. And I'll be covering this in a lot more detail within the membership site. So, yes, so what we can do straight away is to support a child and it starts really with us as a parent. We have to change our way of thinking of dyslexia, not to see it as something that's within the child, that's broken, that's damaged, that needs fixing, but see it to exist within the system, that it exists externally to the child. And the child isn't broken in any way, isn't damaged in any way. We've got a perfectly whole child who is wonderful, and they have a particular medium of expression that is clashing with the invention of written language. And if we were to look at it in that very simple way, and I'll explain within the membership site or in future videos here in the vlog on why the MRI scans, for example, show that there's a section in the brain that's related to dyslexia, and why the scientists have located dyslexia to a particular gene. I'll explain all of that and put some counter arguments against those findings in future videos, and we'll build up our understanding and our thinking around dyslexia in a way that really supports children to develop their skills and to break free of all the negativity associated with, or certainly that they're experiencing and have associated with dyslexia. So that's it. This week, if we just focus on changing our own view as a parent so that we can then start to support the child to develop a new personal theory, as George A. Kelly, the person I mentioned before, would say, a new personal theory of dyslexia. And in the future, I'll be explaining how we can support a child to create a new facet of self-concept, a non-dyslexic or a non-wonky or a non-whatever term the child uses to explain the difficulties they're having, and we'll create that new, support the child to create that new facet of self-concept and how to then sort of develop that and almost free ourselves or liberate ourselves from the old notion of being a bit wonky or broken or damaged in some way, and to step into this much healthier, much more wonderful, liberating way of being. And so that's it for this week. I hope that's made sense to you. I hope that it's useful in some way. Please like the video if you found it useful, or give it a thumbs down if you found it not useful at all. Leave a comment and I'll get back to you on that. And yes, we've got free membership in the, if you have a look around this site, or if you're watching this on YouTube, I'll leave a link so you can go back to our website and sign up for the community for parents membership. It's absolutely free, and you can join that. And we've got a sort of Facebook type news feed on there where we talk and support each other. We're only just launching it today, actually. So if you join now, you'll be one of the first people to join the membership site. So that's it for this week. I hope you're having a wonderful day. It's Saturday here. Well, I'm sure it's Saturday everywhere. But yes, it's a weekend. Hope you have a wonderful weekend. And I hope everything goes well with supporting your child. And speak to you soon. Bye for now. Bye, bye, bye.